What if your cardiologist or your heart doctor suggested holistic healthcare recommendations versus a drug or Lipitor or a statin or blood pressure meds? That would break the standard. That would break the protocol of mainstream medicine. And you might find it wacky. You might find it crazy. But I had a fantastic interview and experience with author and cardiologist Dr. Jack Wolfson, and I'm really excited to bring that to you today. So I hope you enjoy this interview, and the takeaways are plentiful. So I appreciate all the listeners and the requests for this type of information and the comments that continue to pour in. I'm honored, and I'm pleased to offer it for you, and you also continue to challenge me. So thank you. Enjoy the interview.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Dr. Wade. This show was created for and inspired by the thousands of patients I've served, so it's time for me to speak up and speak out on their behalf. With a wide range of experts, we bring you weekly insights, diving deep into topics of controversy to bust through the sugar coating that keeps you and your family stuck in the mainstream. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. For those of you that are here, I'm with an esteemed guest I've been really excited to interview for quite some time. I got to read Jack's book probably now a year and a half, maybe somewhere a year and a half ago. He is the author. He's a well-known cardiologist. He is known as the PaleoCardiologist. And I'm just excited to bring a reputable professional to this arena to discuss things with, for example, my listenership, my audience, and my patients that want alternative ways and methods to go about heart health. And heart health is something that's pretty near and dear to me, which will come out a little more later. But with my family history and my epigenetical challenges that I have, it's a real rampant issue that needs to be discussed. So Dr. Jack, thanks so much for being here with us today. And
Dr. Wade, it's my absolute pleasure. And I guess I want to start off apologizing to everybody for maybe some of my audio quality. I am recording out of my house in a room, and there's a little bit of an echo, so I apologize. But I promise I will provide very good value and information for everyone who's listening.
Well, we're glad to have you, Dr. Jack. And let's just dive right in. Can you tell us, first of all, I alluded in the segue regarding your 16-year history of practicing cardiology traditional, correct?
Yes. So I did 4 years of medical school, 3 years of internal medicine, 3 years of cardiology. So I was in training for 10 years after undergrad. And then I was in practice for 10 years as a hospital-based cardiologist, seeing the sickest of the sick, doing angiograms and pacemakers and all the quote-unquote high-tech cardiology stuff as a partner, again, in the biggest group in Arizona. And then I left that group in 2012 to start my own holistic and integrative cardiology practice. And yeah, that's already been over 7 years ago. And so I guess I would say, Dr. Wade, that I've really seen, I guess, the best of both worlds, if you will, and certainly some of the worst of the conventional world that I think we'll be talking about some of that as we go through our conversation.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, by the way. And let's tell or share, have you share some of your family? I mean, you're a father of three.
Everybody, yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, certainly everybody has like their why as far as why they do things. I mean, I'm here, why I do what I do is certainly like most parents do. We do it for our children, and we do our best for our children. But in doing so, that means we have to do the best for the world that our children live in. So it's not just as simple enough as providing for our kids and providing the information for the kids and making money for our children and making sure that they're protected and well fed and well clothed and all those things. But again, how do we make the world a better place for them and then for their children and so on and so forth? How do we make the world a better place than how we found it?
Wow, that's beautiful. So as a father and now obviously a caregiver after this many years, What kind of speed bumps have you seen? I mean, it had to be hard to, in some ways, it had to be hard to break out of that conventional or traditional mold, especially when all the training is geared around supporting that model.
Yeah, it was certainly very difficult to leave the model. And once again, so the impetus or the muse, if you will, for me leaving that traditional cardiology model goes back to 2005 when I met my future wife. I met the woman who would become my wife, and she is a doctor of chiropractic. And she opened up my eyes to what real health means, and basically said the world that I was working in, the medical system that I was working in, was not addressing the cause of why people get sick, that we only attempt to cover up the symptoms with pills and surgeries. And I couldn't argue with that. She said it, and I couldn't argue with it. And she said, when it comes to prevention, you guys have nothing. And it's totally true. The medical doctors have nothing for prevention. Statin drugs, aspirin, diabetes drugs. They're not preventing anything. They're preventing people from finding the cause. So ultimately, Dr. Heather said, you need to become a doctor of cause. And that's what I did. And in doing so, eventually I would leave that big cardiology group. But you asked about kind of those speed bumps along the way. Well, how do you convince most medical doctors that are making $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year and up to learn the truth? How do you convince them that they should leave that insurance-based model and go into the health and wellness side? So you've got the financial ramifications of leaving a practice like that, but I did it. You've got the concerns about what your peers will think of you, what your former cardiology partners would think about what you're doing. And a lot of people would not want to face the scrutiny of the other cardiologists or other medical doctors, or certainly of insurance companies and medical governing boards. So again, there's so many different layers that it takes for someone to become a holistic doctor that most, of course, don't choose that path, even if they are introduced to it as well. And ultimately, Dr. Wade, what it does is that it rocks the foundation of everything we've ever been taught as cardiologists, as lung specialists, kidney specialists. What the holistic doctor has to share, again, rocks the entire basis of our medical understanding. And that's very difficult for a lot of doctors to comprehend or accept.
Well, kudos to you, by the way. Great deal of respect to be able to branch out like you have. And just, I got a little bit of a chance. I feel like it's a small window to meet Dr. Jack this last weekend. And I was touched by his compassion as a man to do the right thing, and the size of his heart to be able to literally, no pun intended, to be able to step out in that arena when it is very peer pressured from a professional standpoint. And then, like you said, the governing body. So you're overcoming that is fantastic. What do you have? First of all, do you have a number of other professionals in your integrative clinic, for example, your holistic clinic?
Well, we have a nurse practitioner, we have 3 health coaches, but I will tell you that the number of phone calls that I've received over the last 7 years in my holistic cardiology practice, the number of phone calls I've received from other cardiologists interested in doing what I'm doing, 5 in 7 years. And this is despite the fact that so many cardiologists know about me, for better or for worse. Many cardiologists have access to my book or have read my book. Like, a lot of people know about me, and yet the cardiologists don't call because, again, they've got all the financial incentives to stay put. They've got all the medical legal incentives to stay put. So it makes it pretty difficult for those to think about jumping out of the system. But that's how we have it in Arizona. And of course, I've got a fantastic network of chiropractors that I work with, other holistic practitioners, holistic dentists, all the way down to environmental health specialists, mold remediation, EMF toxicity, all that kind of stuff. We also really advise strongly on for our patients.
I like the discussion. I like where your well-roundedness and your perspective comes from. It sounds like I definitely have to meet Dr. Heather at some point with her influence. I didn't share this with my wife is Dr. Heather as well, so she continues to influence me nonetheless.
Well, hopefully the four of us will get together one of these days, the two Heathers and you and I. And I think that's really what's, there's something beautiful about the past event, when you and I were together with all the other holistic doctors this past weekend, about all of us kind of getting together and sharing our success stories and sharing some of those challenges as well. I think, once again, as us, being part of this tribe, and our tribe is growing and the medical tribe is going to shrink. Now, we all know that there's a time and a place for modern medicine when it comes to trauma care, emergency room care. But again, when it comes to prevention, the medical doctors, we're not taught that. We have to learn that later on. It's just not part of our curriculum as far as how you truly prevent heart disease, cancer, strokes, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, dementia, you name it.
So that's a perfect segue. Let's dive into some meat here, some takeaways for our listeners. Can you give me an example? What's one of the biggest myths that you've had to address in terms of treating, the end result, the condition, rather than actually you have the patient come in, let's just take a couple simple cases, high blood pressure or low blood pressure, and what's being asked of the patient versus, what you do now in comparison to traditional mainstream cardiology and medicine?
Well, when it comes to high blood pressure, it's a real simple office visit for the traditional cardiologist or internist. Wade Annenson comes in, for example, blood pressure is 150 over 90. Wade, your blood pressure's high. We got to start you on a pharmaceutical. I don't want to start a pharmaceutical. Are there any other options? No, there's really not any other options. Why do I have high blood pressure? Well, it's just everybody's got it these days. It's just the world we live in. And, maybe it's part genetics and, maybe it's dietary, but, here's the prescription, buy. And I know that exists because I did it and I saw it for, honestly, for 16 years. If we count my 6 years of after medical school training, whatever it is, I saw it for a lot of years. And the point being is that, again, what I try and do now, as opposed to the 5-minute doctor visit where the doctor, oh, by the way, just got a free lunch from the pharmaceutical company who makes that particular drug, I want to get into why someone has high blood pressure. So we start talking about nutrition. We start talking about the importance of things like sleep and sunshine. We start talking about how chiropractic care is proven and studied to lower blood pressure on average by 17 points on the top number and 10 on the bottom number. That's as good or better than any pharmaceutical. Getting the chemicals out of the life. Again, all these different strategies to get the blood pressure back to normal, because the sad fact is that just because we lower your number down artificially with a pharmaceutical doesn't mean that you have any significant lower risk of heart attack, stroke, or dying. We need to continue to address the cause.
Can I have you stop and repeat that point? It's so significant. My patients, which is not anything in a bubble by any means. I just assume that this is all patients if it's my patients. If one person asks, it applies to a mass of folks. Their doctor says, so they just believe, therefore it is. And they believe, of course, that it is solving a problem. And you just stated that it actually does not affect them. How? It doesn't ensure.
Well, once again, so just because we fix a number, like just because we lower your cholesterol number down artificially with a pharmaceutical does not have any meaningful benefit on lowering heart attack, strokes, or dying. Just because we lower your blood pressure, just because we lower your blood sugar. giving someone a narcotic for back pain, for example, doesn't help to fix the fundamental problem of why they have back pain. So again, it's just all of these Band-Aid approaches, and that's how the medical system skates by. They just kind of keep trying to apply a Band-Aid. They never address the cause, and that's why heart disease is still the number one killer around the world. Cancer is right behind it. Strokes are right behind that. Of course, pharmaceutical errors are also in that category of top 5 causes of death around the world. So again, we need to address the causation. We as humans have the ultimate potential to be healthy. We cut ourselves shaving, for example, and it heals. When we take away the things that are causing the damage, our body will heal. And again, when we eat the right foods, when we get the right sunshine and sleep, and we get adjusted, when we do all these things, our body just stays healthy. And that's where the success is going to be. It's never going to be in a pill bottle.
That's just music. It's music in my ears. The reality. So what specifically, what kind of challenges have you faced? You'd mentioned a little bit, and we don't have to go any deeper than you want to get with that, but what kind of challenges have you faced with colleagues, such as when you did break off? And I mean, it's hard to have a popular voice and you're not making them wrong as much as you're following your heart.
Yeah, I try not to worry about what anyone else thinks. I think it is clearly human nature to behave that way and to let others' opinions of you influence you. And of course, I would advise anybody that is the wrong way to live. You be you, and they will be them. And hopefully we can let the world decide. Hopefully we can let the patients decide. But that's the important part of me writing my book, my website, being on podcasts like you is again to get that information out there, to let the holistic and natural and healthy side get out there to the world, because the other side is promoting the pharmaceutical message, the surgical message, the you can't do anything about it message, the lack of accountability message. Yeah. And that message, of course, is very popular right now. You just turn on the television and they highlight all these different disease conditions, and then they run commercials for the pharmaceuticals intended to treat those conditions. Again, the doctors of chiropractic are very popular with this. The body is not deficient in pharmaceuticals. There is no statin drug deficiency, aspirin drug deficiency. There's no opioid deficiency. There's no diabetes drug deficiency. There's no chemotherapy deficiency. There's a reason why these health problems arise, and we need to continue to fix that reason. And because my former colleagues don't get that, I really don't care. I wish they did, because again, if our purpose is to make the world a better place, the more people that are helping us, the better off the world will be. But it's just going to take a little extra time.
I agree. I was just looking at a couple questions there that we'd prepared for, and I was pulling up how patients might respond to their doc when they hear this, and what could they ask? How I know it's not necessarily at all going to become well received when it's coming from that patient. But what I think about is, how do patients face what they're up against with their doctor when they're just going to meet resistance? You and I both know that. Yeah. And I also understand that as a physician, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's less choice involved as a physician reads the data about a patient, and more because of the lobbying and the standards of care that have been already derived. Is that correct?
Well, it's definitely correct in the sense that, the doctors, they don't have a lot of options. I mean, so, because they don't know anything else. Like if I'm a traditional cardiologist, somebody comes in with high blood pressure, I only know one way to deal with that, and that's pharmaceuticals. So I really don't have a toolbox in my head of other things I could do, but outside sources are limiting me on those thoughts and those possible actions. I only know one way to do it. And again, what the goal really is to get people into, to understand the idea that, it's not the 1970s Marcus Welby television show. It's my way or the highway. Doctors, once again, that's how it's always been with the doctors. I'm the doctor, you're the patient, you do as I say. I'll call that a bully approach. For everybody out there who has children, that they know, especially young children these days, it's all about like the bully, and being aware of bullying tactics. Well, doctors are the worst bullies in the world to try and get across their agenda as fast as possible. But there is something that Al Gore invented many years ago, and that's called the internet. And the internet, I say that facetiously and sarcastically, but I'm serious about the internet factor in the sense that the internet is an equalizer. So now we no longer have to just rely on the word of one doctor. We can get onto my website and learn a different approach. We can listen to your information, Dr. Wade, on your podcast and in your office and in other areas that allows people, again, to have an informed decision. So many people, they're researching a car and they go on the internet and they look up all this. I want to look at this car, this car, this car, this car. Or they are looking for a house and they go on to Zillow or some kind of online, or they're shopping for plane tickets, or they go to the grocery store. Whatever it is, everybody shops, but nobody shops for their health care, which is the most important thing of all. So you have to shop and become an informed consumer, and then again, use that information to help you make the best decisions. So I would only ask people, you can talk to your traditional medical doctor about high blood pressure drugs. You can talk and read my information, or come see me in person to talk about another holistic, natural approach to blood pressure. And then you decide, and maybe you want to say, you know what? I'm still married to the medical model for XYZ reasons. I'm just going to take this pharmaceutical, and swallow that down. And okay. But again, it's all about the informed patient.
Beautiful. And if you guys, if Jack, I'm not sure you can see this, I have your website up. You guys can find Dr. Jack Wolfson. He is also, again, the PaleoCardiologist. It's a great book for understanding where Dr. Jack comes from in terms of how to be proactive with your dietary, heart health, and overall health. There it is. Yes. Thank you. With a bison on the cover. You can find that at Amazon. You can find it anywhere. Correct, Jack?
Well, you know what? I mean, and if anybody's interested, all they have to do, come on over to my practice website. It's called Wolfson, integrative cardiology.com, and there'll be like a little pop down or drop down that offers you the book for free. All you have to do is pay shipping. So I would prefer you to purchase the book from me as opposed to Amazon. Amazon's doing quite well. I certainly want to get the information out there as much as possible.
So I'll put that up. Wolfson Cardiology.
So Wolfson integrative cardiology.com. You can put it up or not. It's kind of a long one.
Let's try that. Is that it, Jack? Okay, cool. So, I mean, the crucial points here are the top three. We're going to talk about blood pressure, and Dr. Jack just alluded to that. And what I wasn't aware of is the 17 and 10. That's pretty awesome. Systolic over diastolic changes with chiropractic. Even though as a chiropractor for 25 plus years, 26 now, I'm fully aware, and we do post-check blood pressure when patients are struggling with it. I'm also quite fascinated at how many times patients may have an episodic. Let's just take one patient in particular that I spoke with just yesterday. And he had some moles removed specifically. And while he was in the office for that, they checked his blood pressure, and it was high. So what did they recommend? On one visit, which was kind of a stressful visit because he was concerned that there may be what involved with the moles, that they may be cancerous. So I guess I find it fascinating that you can't be a human being anymore and have emotional responses to our environment without it being categorized as you're sick, you're not well, you need this drug now, versus the reality is this guy was in a doctor's office and he was a little stressed. And Dr. Jack, would you expect blood pressure to change in those environments?
Yeah, no, certainly blood pressure goes up under stressful situations. The medical literature says that people should have high blood pressure, elevated blood pressure on 2 separate occasions in order to make the diagnosis of high blood pressure. So when someone has it on one visit and they prescribed a pharmaceutical, that really is, I don't want to say it's malpractice, but let's just say that it's not standard of care to do that. We shouldn't be doing that. We should also, of course, always, monitor that. Now, that being said, stress-induced hypertension is a real thing. And the literature tells that as well, because there's stress in the doctor's office, but there's also stress at work, stress at home, stress with the cable company, stress when your favorite sports team maybe wins or loses. I don't know. So again, stress is part of our life. And that's why stress is a major risk factor for cardiovascular disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, obesity, you name it. And that's why we got to get stress out of our lives. Can I answer that? Greta Blackwell Faraz said, do I see a chiropractor regularly? Well, the answer, of course, is yes. I'm married to one, so I see her as often as possible, socially, and as a patient of hers. But I do also see other chiropractors. We actually currently live in Colorado, so I see a chiropractor here, and I've got several chiropractors that I am under the care of in Arizona. And then, of course, I just saw Dr. Wade this past weekend, and I was adjusted by a few chiropractors over the weekend as well. So I grab an adjustment whenever possible. And what's funny, Wade, I do want to say this, real quick, is that, and I don't know if I shared this story with you, but I dropped off my son at soccer practice for the first time, a few months ago, for his new team. And I'm talking to the new coach. And we're having a conversation, and the coach tells me that he's a part-time soccer coach, but he's also a full-time chiropractor here in Colorado. And I had to take the opportunity to kind of bust his chops a little bit. And I said, you're a chiropractor. I said, you really think chiropractic works? And he looked at me and he said, sure, chiropractic makes you feel better. And so many times, chiropractors and even myself, we're kind of we're talking about, trying to provide evidence and proof and science about chiropractic. And I could spit out stats to you and say, chiropractic in the literature and in my book and on my website and in my blog, chiropractic lowers blood pressure, increases heart rate variability, improves immune function, lowers inflammation, oxidative stress. In the literature, all that is heart healthy. But fundamentally, should it really matter if the person comes out of the chiropractor's office and says, I just feel better? Like myself, Jack Wolfson, I don't check my blood pressure when I come and go. I'm not worried about my heart rate variability. I'm not worried about inflammation. I know all those things are an exciting benefit to getting adjusted. I just know when I walk out of the chiropractor's office, I always feel better. And I don't want that message to get lost again. So it's kind of like, why do I go? I go because I like feeling better. That's why I go.
I love it. That's a great distinction on the simplicity of chiropractic. We sometimes, I find patients need to justify their decision-making process. Would you agree? It's kind of like, well, I need enough reason to make this a valuable experience, or it's just not worth it. Like it's not worth it to just value yourself enough to feel better more often.
I would agree. And for me also, it is about the prevention. I know listen, you and I had this discussion over the weekend. I've had this discussion many times before, as far as, maybe some of the differences amongst the chiropractors as far as what their belief system is on how they improve health and wellness. I think they all believe they improve health and wellness. It's just a matter of how it's done. But myself as a cardiologist, as an outsider in the chiropractic world, I get to say whatever I want. So I get to say that chiropractic improves blood pressure. I get to say chiropractic improves your cholesterol numbers and lowers your risk of a heart attack. I get to say that chiropractic helps to prevent diabetes. I get to say all that stuff because I'm an outsider. And again, I say it not because I'm married to it, not because all of my new best friends like you are chiropractors. I say it because it is the truth. I say it because I believe that the doctor of chiropractic should be the go-to for all things health and wellness. The doctor of chiropractic should be your primary healthcare provider. Now, again, whether or not other people think the same or other chiropractors think the same, like my old cardiology partners, I don't care. I care about my truth and the way I see it for myself, for my family, and hopefully for the entire world.
Powerful words, Jack. Powerful words. Thank you, by the way. Thank you so much.
And after all that, I'm going to take a bite of some sardines.
Sweet. You just have at it. I will set this up. Are you okay with addressing the topic of statins and the challenge patients face when they see their doctor? And I'm really talking about the pressure a patient feels when they're made to be just the decision is made. We alluded to that earlier. We know that, but there's this constant theme where patients feel stuck with confrontation. As we know, the majority of the population is amiable in terms of statistically 48% of the population doesn't want to make waves or avoids confrontation. When we put that in the scenario of real life, that is the majority of scenarios with doctors, and patients literally doesn't mean they're complying with the recommendation, but they're certainly not going to resist it in the doctor's office, and they don't feel educated enough to do so. So can you talk a little bit about, and just from the heart, wherever you want to, again, maybe a little pun there, but not intended.
Yeah, I was going to say that was definitely a pun. Okay.
Yeah. Really from your heart about how to answer this. I mean, just correlating with how patients feel when they do that. And you know this, but how do they navigate their way through this and feel like they're doing what's right for them?
Well, again, you didn't allude to this in your question, but I said it before. And again, that word is bully. Doctors are bullies, the worst of the worst kind. The influence that they have as those bullies is tremendous. Now, what do you do with a bully in that scenario? Well, I guess you can try and educate the bully. And if it's on the playground and say, hey, I'm really a nice kid and we should all, just get along and play together. I don't think that the bullies from our childhood would necessarily listen to that rhetoric. And the doctor doesn't listen to that explanation either. The doctor doesn't care about your concerns or your stories or, I heard about this patient who developed rhabdomyolysis or liver failure from statin use. Oh, you know what? My best friend's father was on statin drugs and the whole family thinks that caused his dementia. So again, trying to educate the medical doctors is not going to do any good. If they've got no time to hear it. If Jack Wolfson couldn't educate the other cardiologists on dangers, risks, and alternatives and lack of benefit of the pharmaceuticals, what makes you think you're going to be able to tell that, to change that doctor? So that's why I say, in my opinion, you don't go see those doctors. If you go to the chiropractor for health and wellness, I assure you the chiropractor is not telling you to take aspirin, statins, and blood pressure drugs. They're not going to do it. So again, that is the beauty of going to people that you resonate with. I've got all the science and information in my book. I've got all the reasons why people should do it in my book, on my website, and videos, when I speak from the stage, all those different reasons on why people, again, should seek out a holistic healthcare provider. And as you mentioned, stress. When you go into the doctor's office and you're not comfortable there and you're not comfortable with his suggestions, then why are you there? Why are you there? Leave there and don't come back. And I said, if it's an emergency, go to an emergency room. For everything else, see your chiro.
All right. So I'm just highlighting here again as it crawls across the screen. Check out Dr. Jack's website at wolfsonintegrativecardiology.com, and this is the best place to buy the PaleoCardiologist. The book is fantastic from an educational standpoint. Dr. Jack sets the tone in terms of where he comes from, and it is well researched. Dr. Jack.
I mean, if I can, real quick, is to say that I'm not saying that statin drugs don't work. Statin drugs lower the numbers down, that's for sure. But statin drugs may, according to their scientific research, lower the risk of, say, you or I, from 5% chances of having a heart attack over the next 5 years down to 4.2%.
Wow, 0.8.
So if you want to take a pharmaceutical for 5 years to lower that number down by that particular percentage, that's up to you. But for me personally, and for my friends, and for my family, and for my patients, I don't want to offer them 5% or 4%. I want to offer them a 0% chance of having a heart attack, stroke, or dying in the next 5 years. We know they don't do that. We know they can't do that. We know their numbers. I think we could do better.
Boom. I absolutely agree, and we see it in our patients. And I want to help people find out more about what you do and be able to access your information. So that was the impetus for me to have you and share you with my audience and hopefully the world as to what your perspective is from a holistic standpoint. It is extremely valuable, Jack, and I appreciate you as a human being and a professional with that. And you have a big task to move the world. I expect a great deal out of you. So, but after meeting you, your shoulders are broad. Nonetheless, in light of where this goes, tell us how someone from Wisconsin might be able, how can you help them? How can you help someone from Wisconsin here?
Well, we've got my book, we've got my, website, as you pointed out, Wolfson Integrative Cardiology. The doctorswolfson.com is where our blog is, and we get lots of good information there as well. I've got videos. I've got my Inner Circle Facebook group called Natural Heart Doctor. It's a closed group. So we have a lot of different avenues that people can join and really get the best health and wellness information. For those of you listening, if you want the absolute best in cardiology care, I suggest you come out to Arizona for the first visit. Everything else after that we can do by phone or by Skype or whatever. So I have a lot of people from all over the world that come out to Arizona to see me in person, and that's an option as well. But I want to thank you for having me on and be able to bring to light a lot of these issues. My book has 17 chapters, over 240 pages, over 300 references as to what I say. So again, I guess ultimately, if you have a problem with your medical doctor, maybe show them a copy of my book and say, this guy says differently. And then, oh, by the way, in the back of the book are all of the references to what he was saying. So, coming from a board certified cardiologist, hopefully that comes across, pretty strongly to your local doctor.
Well, I'm going to add some in my office to my office lending library and or just get some to have in my office to sell for you, just because I want my patients to get the best, most current advice holistically, and knowing that, after my mom passed she had heart disease, passed of a stroke from some trauma as well. But my grandparents, her parents also both died of heart conditions. And so when we look at this will be more in depth later at another time. It's not appropriate, but that's a serious issue when we talk about epigenetics. And I think that's where you need guidance such as Jack for that big picture, that broad spectrum. No one can tell you as much about the challenges of making decisions in healthcare and being part of that big machine other than for you to fall down and get involved in that system, which I had to do this last year and was again confirmed as to how little they take the human being into consideration. And moreover, you are just a herd mentality that everyone gets treated the same regardless of your condition, your epigenetics, your genetics, and how your philosophies, let's just say your health philosophies are not considered. So that was a stark reminder as to what kind of challenges, which is why, again, my heart is into this. Maybe a little pun there again, I'm not realizing it, but why this is such a driving issue to help patients navigate their way through this BS, this giant machine we call healthcare that literally just churns out drugs and surgeries that are oftentimes not necessary, but not that all are unnecessary. So one thing you did not mention that I'd love for you to plug is your recent challenge. Give me, Phil, and I'll put the link in here, Jack, following our conversation, but can you tell the folks just a bit about the challenge you have going and how they might be able to participate and just get their feet wet?
For sure. So what we're doing is we're doing a 7-day carnivore challenge, and we're going to do it right after Thanksgiving. So maybe not the most popular time of the year, but kind of like a great time to really dial in your health and wellness over a 7-day period leading up into the Christmas season. So it's kind of like December 2nd to December 9th. We're going to go carnivore. So we're not going to starve ourselves. We're going to be eating meat, seafood, and eggs. We're going to do so for that week, and we're going to feel fantastic doing it. So I would invite anybody and everybody, if they want to, check out the doctorswolfson.com/carnivore, and that will take them into the area where they can get more information. And then, of course, you can always reach out on Facebook or call the office, email the office if you're looking for more information about how you can join the challenge or more about what the challenge is about. But we've got a lot of support. We got a supplements package we give you beforehand. You have a meeting, a free meeting included with one of our health coaches. And again, the support of the Inner Circle Facebook group on a daily basis. And we've done one of them before. It was a tremendous success. I couldn't wait to do it again. And I thought that week after Thanksgiving, when everybody indulges too much on Thanksgiving, that we dive into this for a 7-day period, and then you're probably going to indulge again over the rest of the holidays, but at least you'll be that much healthier, beforehand. So carnivore is super heart healthy. I have tons of videos and information on that. But I am the PaleoCardiologist, which again, it's a little bit different of a diet, but of course allows meat and seafood with tons of vegetables as well. But for this 1 week, we're going to give up eating the veggies as well.
Can you give them a plug? I mean, I take care of a great deal of a diverse crowd of folks, and we have from vegan to vegetarianism to carnivore as well, ketogenic supporters. Can you just, maybe this is not fair. In fact, I know it's not fair to bring up on such a short, tight window, but why would someone even think about just going carnivore for a little window? I mean, just top 2 benefits.
So the best thing about any kind of food challenge or cleanse is that it breaks bad food addictions. So whether you go carnivore or keto or paleo or even you go vegan, if you follow the tenets of that particular diet plan, you're cutting out all the junk. You're cutting out the artificial sugars, artificial flavors, added sugars. You're cutting out a lot of the junk, and invariably people are going to do better. The idea about carnivore is that, number one, animal products contain all the nutrients that we need, contains everything that we need, all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the proteins, all the fats in their perfect form. So we have all that from eating meat, seafood, and eggs. And so that's reason number one. Number 2 is that, again, by eating this particular way, It helps to really kind of clear out the digestive tract, allow the body to heal itself. There's a lot of conversation out there about the damage from lectins, the damage from oxalates, the damage from histamines, all these other dietary approaches, and carnivore helps to get rid of all of that. And we took 20 plus people through it last time, and everybody did just so fantastic. Lost weight. Some people lost over 10 pounds in 7 days. Lost weight, felt great. Markers of symptoms of inflammation, aches and pains. Everything was better. Sleep was better. All was better. So we decided to do it again. And there you go.
That's cool. No, those are great hits. I appreciate it. Jack, is there any parting words you want to leave our audience with today?
Well, I think I said it's just, I really want people to embrace the doctor of chiropractic again as that go-to for all things health and wellness. And so I would certainly implore people to do that. And again, as we said before, just get educated. You don't have to become an expert in cardiology to understand that there's another approach. So always look for another approach. Always ask for a second opinion or even a third opinion, and especially one that you're comfortable with, because I think that spiritually, it's very important for us to be on the same, playing field or on the same level or the same thought process, same channel or plane as our physicians. And again, if you're kind of not resonating together and you're out of balance, I think it definitely leads to worse health outcomes. So thanks, love it. Thanks again for having me on, buddy.
You betcha. At any time. In fact, I have some ideas for an upcoming conversation interview where we can dive deep into some philosophical things if you'd like, and we can discuss that. But thanks so much for being here. I loved our conversation, and it is my show, so that's really all we have to please right now is just me. So the funny thing is, I know there's people in this audience that already have found value, and thanks, Greta, for asking that question. And all those who watch, and this is going to be repurposed and shared also on iTunes, so look for that upload. Dr. Jack, thanks so much for being here with us today. I will post all your information and links to drive people at least an option to find you. Are you available for questions if someone reaches out to you? Awesome. You can find out. So I hope you found great benefit from this conversation. And until next time, be well. And ask questions and challenge your doctor to help you understand what's going on with your body. Peace. Thank you much for listening to this week's episode. I look forward to any feedback and or questions you might have. Direct them to our Facebook page, Frankly Speaking, Dr. Wade at Facebook. Okay, my fellow health warriors, it's time to head over to iTunes, franklyspeakingdrwade.com. There, you can rate, review, and subscribe, as well as share so more of our brothers and sisters can grow to realize their voice. Speaking up means you matter. So, get on it. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views expressed are not medical advice and are not meant to replace the medical advice of your doctor. This podcast, including Dr. Wade Annenson and his guests, disclaim responsibility for any adverse effects you may experience from the specific use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse and accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about the guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for such services or product. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.